Good morning, University of Houston. Welcome, everybody, back to CoogsTalk. It's going to be a great show today. I'm here with Andrew and Kenneth. How you boys doing?
Doing good, Sean Paul.
I'm doing great.
Yeah, we got an exciting show for you today. We got college football, Heisman Trophy watches, NBA, NFL. It's going to be a great show. And yes, if you haven't seen, I am wearing an Astros shirt. And you know, it's been tough these past few days ever since we got eliminated from our sorry offense. But I'll still support my boys in the end. So we'll get back there eventually. But anyways, are you guys ready?
Yes,
Let's
sir.
do it.
All right. So first up, college football, and man, this Heisman, this has probably been the most competitive Heisman matchup in years. We get Travis Hunter, the do-it-all player from Colorado, Ashton Johnson, 4 games in, 845 yards and 13 touchdowns, over 100 yards in every game he's played for. Jalen Milroe from Alabama, looking much more polished from last year. So those are the front runners. So I have to ask you, who do you think will win the Heisman? Andrew, I'll start with you.
Honestly, I think based on stats and based on record, I would have to go with Jalen Milroe, only because he's been playing well all year. Alabama just defeated Georgia last week. They're currently undefeated. And I think that the more wins that they get, he'll obviously be the front runner to shine in those games. And I think that Colorado's going to have a little bit of a decline later on in the season, and Travis won't be able to pick up as many stats. So my guess would be Milroe for sure.
Okay. Kenneth, what about you? Who's your winner for the Heisman?
Right now, I do agree Jalen Milroe is balling out. He's having an amazing season. Alabama just had a big game against Georgia. But I think right now, honestly, Travis Hunter, he's a very electric player. He's playing both sides of the ball. I think Colorado if they can keep stacking wins over the year, they got a big game against ranked Kansas State. If they can take down Kansas State, which I don't really think is that good of a team, I think if Colorado can take down Kansas State and just keep on winning throughout the year, I mean, there's no reason why you can't give it to Travis Hunter. But I do think since Bama, they are Alabama, Jalen Milroe is the quarterback of Alabama. So I think it's a close matchup. It will be close, but I would say Travis Hunter, in my opinion. But, you know, we also got some other guys in there. We got Cam Ward. Honestly, I think Shedeur Sanders should be in the Heisman conversation as well. But that's really it.
Yeah, I agree with you on that point for sure, that Cam Ward and Shedeur should definitely be in the conversation. Miami having his first ranked appearance in quite some time. Cam Ward at the helm. They've got a senior at running back and a senior at receiver that are all three making a trio, kind of leading the offense. I also think that Shedeur Sanders is doing a fantastic job leading Colorado. They finished with 4 wins last year, and they already are at 4 wins this year. Since they do play in the Big 12, it'll be hard to see kind of where they can get wins. Maybe they against Kansas State this weekend, maybe against some other Big 12 teams that they play later on in the year. But, you know, it'll be interesting to see how the Heisman race finishes out.
Yeah, honestly, I really wish, Colorado I really wish Colorado would have played against Houston, but at the same time, given our current situation, that wouldn't end very well. So maybe next year, or maybe
I think we are on their schedule for next year. We go to Colorado and play them one of these years.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, best of luck to us, I guess.
Yeah, that'll be fun.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so now we go on to the games from last week. And, I want to get your thoughts and reactions. So, first up, our own school, it was a tough loss against Iowa State. Our defense did our best for the first half. We even made them miss a field goal.
First 3 quarters, really,
Yeah.
we really didn't give up a score or a touchdown until the end of the third. So,
Yeah.
I think that just from last year, I would say we had decent defense last year. In the Big 12, we're what top 5 defense as of last week. You can only ask so much of your defense. You hold a ranked opponent to 3 points for a majority of the game, and then it's only right that they fall apart. especially since we don't really have a scoring defense, I would say, but a good job preventing. And if we had an offense that could, help our defense out, I think we would be a better ball club. But just shout out to Coach Fritz, what he's doing with the team. I would say he's trying to put us in the right direction. We've seen what he's done with rebuilding programs. First year is usually not all that good, but usually in the next years, that's when you'll really see the improvements. So we'll just wait till in the upcoming years. I have faith in Coach Fritz and what he can do for our program.
Yeah, I want to touch on that as well. I think that, you can only, like you said, you can only ask the defense to do so much. And I think we've been trying as an offense. We just really need to find an identity. We've been trying to keep it with the run game. Snead had almost averaged 8 yards a carry last game against Iowa State. But we haven't really found anything in our passing game. I think we should change the scheme around Donovan Smith, maybe try to make him more of a dual threat and kind of, play to his style instead of trying to make him a pocket passer or trying to make him, a field general, kind of, play him like Miami would Cam Ward. He's a dual threat, and they kind of catered the offense around his capabilities. So it'd be nice to see, hopefully, if we can get, some offense in these next couple games, considering we lost to Iowa State this last week and then the previous week to Cincinnati at their place. So as long as we keep keep with the ground game with Snead and trying to get Donovan Smith involved, more of his skill set involved in the offense, I think we'll be all right going forward.
Good takes. And also, man, how about Alabama versus Georgia? It never fails, does it?
What a game. I mean, you talk about a quarterback and wide receiver duo between Milroe and Ryan Williams, which Ryan Williams, 17-year-old phenom coming in as a freshman. He made 2 of the most spectacular catches I've seen in a game where he, caught the ball back shoulder, did a spin, turned around, evaded 2 or 3 defenders, and hit up the sideline for like a 50 to 60-yard touchdown. And then another play where he was one-on-one with the Georgia defender, tipped the ball to himself, ended up getting an extra 15 to 20 yards. He basically saved the game for them. When they needed to play most, Milroe went to Williams, and Williams delivered. And for him being so young at 17, going up against one of the most fierce programs in the entire country, like in Georgia, it's just inspiring to see how such a young kid like that can, play at such a high level already.
Yeah, just seeing that game, Alabama coming out with the victory. I mean, what did you expect? I mean, it's Alabama, it's the Crimson Tide. And I'm not an Alabama fan, but just to come out, get that one over Georgia in front of Nick Saban. He's there watching. On the Georgia side, I'm not really a fan of Carson Beck. I think Georgia needs to start recruiting it's just the game of football. I would say they're more leaning towards dual threat style quarterbacks. Carson Beck, they had Stetson Bennett and you had Jake Fromm. Those are more like game manager type of guys. And then with the whole new world of NIL and stuff like that, people obviously Georgia's still going to get the 5-star players. People are still going to go to Georgia, but people aren't just going to go to Georgia anymore just because it's Georgia. And same thing with Alabama. And that's why I would say they have to do with their style with Jalen Milroe. He's come into his own this year. And I think Georgia should follow suit when choosing their next quarterback.
Yeah, and NIL. At first, it sounded good, but honestly, now I just hate it. And so, like, the upcoming week, we got plenty of good games. Michigan versus Oregon State, Missouri versus Texas A&M, Iowa versus Ohio State, Auburn versus Georgia, Clemson versus Florida State. To be fair, I honestly would have been more excited for this game if Florida State was actually, good.
Yeah.
USC versus Minnesota. So tell me, what game are you looking forward to the most?
I would like to see Oregon, just to see what Dylan Gabriel can do. Georgia and Auburn, that's SEC matchup. It's always a good game, but I think Georgia will probably run Auburn out the door. But I don't know. I don't really have as much faith in Georgia as previous years because we've seen when they played Kentucky a couple weeks back, you only put up 13 points against Kentucky football. But I think that still be a good game to see just because it's an SEC, conference game.
Yeah, I agree with you. I mean, I think that Georgia's schedule only gets harder. They play Texas, Ole Miss, and they play, a bunch of just highly ranked opponents in the last later stretch of their schedule, which could end up being a down year for them where they get 2, 3, 4 losses on the schedule. A game that I'm excited for definitely is the A&M Missouri game. It'll be interesting to see, will Connor Wegman start at quarterback for A&M? He's been injured the last couple weeks. Reed has gotten the start, and he's gotten some big wins. And it'll be interesting to see how Missouri can respond to a big SEC test like this. Will Luther Burden showed up in the game. He's obviously their star receiver. It'll be interesting to see kind of who comes out on that matchup, and I think the winner of that matchup will ultimately kind of push their program forward into maybe a potential bowl game clinching. So it'll be good for either team. It's a big, high-implication game for them.
And now, Andrew, so before the show started, you actually had a hot take, and you said, and I quote, Georgia will not make the 12-man playoff. What makes you say that?
So I don't think that Georgia will make the 12-man playoff because, one, they already lost to Alabama, so that's one loss. I also think that they will lose to Texas. I think they also can get potential losses against Ole Miss and Tennessee, who are all in their schedule. And in this new 12-team format, you can't really afford to lose more than about 2 or 3 games. So I think if they push the threshold for that 3-game loss on their record, I think that, other teams will creep up. You got teams like Alabama, you got teams like Oregon, you have teams like Notre Dame, you've got teams like Clemson that are coming back up after their first loss in week 1. So it'll be interesting to see how the 12-team format plays out since it's the first year. But yeah, I don't think Georgia's going to make it. I think they'll have too many losses.
Yeah, I bet you upset a lot of Dogs fans. You really did.
Georgia fans, if you're watching this, it might be a down year for y'all. I don't know.
You heartless monster. So before we move on to our next topic, I just want to get your quick thoughts. Who is your national champions?
Honestly, right now, I got Alabama. Just what we seen last week. But also, don't be surprised if we see Colorado in the 12-team playoff. Just in the Big 12 conference, it's not really a strong conference. The competition, I would say, is very level. We can see Colorado run through the Big 12. Like, they've improved. We've seen improvements just from last year and this year. Shador and Travis are connecting if they can stay healthy. The defense has gotten better over the past couple of weeks. The O-line protection has gotten better. So we might see Colorado in that playoff. And Georgia missing the playoff, it can happen. Honestly, just the past couple of years, even when they won, I tell Georgia fans all the time, you guys don't play anybody. They're playing people this year. They got teams on their schedule. So
yeah, it'll be interesting for sure. I like the Alabama pick, but I'm going with a different type of style pick here. I'm going Texas. I think this is the year that Texas gets it done. They were close last year in a tough loss to Washington. But I think Texas is going to get it done this year. Whether it's Quinn or whether it's Arch or whether they use both, we're not sure yet. I think they have too many weapons on offense, and I think they have a really good defense.
Not mad at it.
At least, well, at least one Arlington team has they'll achieve something, if you know what I mean. Because Dallas, you see, Dallas, you should take some notes from Texas because they're actually exceeding their expectations. You guys, well, what can I say? Most overrated franchise of the past 20 years. Just, man. So next, our topic, NFL, and oh boy, has this season, it's just being weird already. Sam Darnold, he's actually looking like an MVP candidate. A whole bunch of teams are actually falling below their expected standards. The Jets, the Browns, the Cowboys. The Giants look rough. To be fair, when has the Giants never looked rough, honestly? They always look it. And this season is just weird in general. So let's start off with the MVP contenders, because honestly, if you had to pick MVP right now, it's got to be Sam Darnold. Who else, right?
Yeah, Vikings they're still undefeated, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, undefeated Vikings. Sam Darnold's leading the way at the helm. But, if we're talking about just candidates, I think we got to throw my guy Geno Smith in there. He's leading the league in passing yards right now. 3-1 Seattle Seahawks. Mm-hmm. They had a tough game against the Lions. 6 missing starters on defense. I think they go in Detroit with a hell of the defense. They come out 4-0.
Yeah, Seahawks look really good. I think Geno's definitely in the conversation. I would throw Josh Allen and C.J. Stroud in there. I think despite the O-line troubles that the Texans have had, I think that the fact that the Texans are sitting at 3-1, C.J.'s been able to extend plays in ways that, help move the Texans down the field. I think that he's, I believe, top 5 in passing yards at the moment. So I would throw him up there. And then Josh Allen for sure. I think Sam Darnold's luck is going to run out a little bit when they start playing some of their more division opponents, when they play the Lions. Maybe another game against the Packers. So it'd be interesting. I think, Josh Allen, they had a rough game on Sunday night against the Ravens, but I think that the way that they're playing is pretty much carefree. They don't really care about stats. He's able to the offense is basically catered to his abilities and what he can do. And so I think that, over the course of the year, plus if Tua is out, I think they beat Miami again if they have to play them. The Patriots don't look great, and neither do the Jets.
They beat the Dolphins anyway, so
yeah.
with Tua.
The Jets' offense is still trying to find their identity, and then the Patriots are really struggling with Brissett at quarterback. So I think it'll be, pretty much a cakewalk for them to win the AFC East and, make Josh Allen a top MVP pick for sure.
Yeah. They had they got blown out by the Ravens on Sunday Night Football. I'm not really a Josh Allen fan. I think they hype him up every year. They play like trash teams. Like they blew out the Jaguars. They beat the Dolphins with no Tua, and then you play a real team in the Baltimore Ravens and you get blown out. So I could never put Josh Allen in an MVP candidate because you got to beat some real teams first just for me to have some belief in you. And then I don't really know what they're gonna do with that offense when they start playing the better teams. I like Keon Coleman.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how they use guys like James Cook, who's been kind of, having
he's
a
been
better
up and
year.
Down. He's been up and down.
Yeah,
but
Dalton Kincaid, Dawson
Yeah.
Knox, that tight end combo.
And then with Sam Darnold, I think they will have a real test this week against the Jets.
Yeah.
They have a good defense, but on the offensive side of the ball, I don't really know what the Jets are doing. Aaron Rodgers, he's kind of, he's washed. So I don't know, he's old.
Not the year that they expected to have to start.
But he's only 40.
Only 40.
Only 40.
Only 40.
Off an Achilles tear, but
Yeah.
we'll see what happens on Sunday.
Yeah, and also speaking of the Bills, CBS 12 o'clock. It will be the Bills against the Texans, and this, will be the first meeting between Stephon Diggs and the Bills ever since his, let's just say, complicated exits. It was a very tumultuous relationship between Stephon Diggs and the Bills, especially Josh Allen. There were some highs and there were some lows. So Josh Allen says, he and Diggs, they still on good terms. However, I'm not so sure about that. What do you guys think?
Well, I don't think there's any beef between Stephon and Josh Allen. I think that was just more so like a football thing. They're probably like cool outside of the game, but once they get between in that stadium on that field, it's like a whole different thing. So I think Stephon Diggs, he is a competitor. If there's lack of targets, lack of touches, he's the type of guy to get angry about that type of stuff. So that was one of my concerns about him going to the Texans, is that can they keep Stephon Diggs happy? He is happy right now. He's in a new location, new team. He's with C.J. Stroud. But if the losses start reeling in, lack of targets, lack of touches, we might see the same Stephon Diggs as we've seen with the Bills and also with the Vikings.
I think it's been an interesting way that Diggs has kind of been incorporated in the Texas offense. Nico's still been the front runner. He leads the league in passing yards, coming off a breakout season for him. And it's been interesting to see kind of the target share between Nico, Stephon, and Tank. I know Tank's been out a couple games, but it's been interesting. Diggs has kind of gotten on the short receptionist sides. We've kind of used him in the short game, and he's been able to get a couple touchdowns. He had a couple of touchdowns against the Colts. He had a rushing touchdown last week, his first one of his career. And I think that I think we'll find ways to kind of incorporate all three in the offense. Whether it's one having a good game one week, or maybe a combination of the trio having solid receiving games. So, Stephon Diggs and his return to Buffalo, I think it'll be, I want to say that he'll have a breakout game against his former team, but then again, they also know how to scheme for him. So I think, it should be a good matchup on both sides. The Bills have a really good defense. The Texans have a really good offense, aside from the O-line penalties. So I think it'll either be a super close game down to the wire, or it's going to be a shootout for sure.
Yeah, I would say shootout. I expect the Texans to put the ball in the air more this game, just because of their injuries at running back Joe Mixon. Mm-hmm. And I feel like that's just a game where, D'Amico Ryans is going to go to C.J. Stroud and say, C.J., put it in the air. And then, you got guys, you got Nico, you got Tank, you got Stephon Diggs. So I would say a shootout, but I do like Texans on defense.
Yeah, me too. I think, we've been waiting for a breakout game for the defense, specifically on the D-line with Hunter and Will. And I think that if there's any week to do it, like this is the week you do it. Both teams are 3-1. Both teams are looking to get their 4th win of the season and kind of extend into that next hard stretch of the season as we head towards the midseason and the playoff race starts heating up. So I think that both teams know what is at stake. Both teams are trying to play hard for a win. And it's going to be an interesting matchup to see what happens on Sunday for sure.
Yeah, very interesting. Friends become enemies, enemies become friends. These type of situations, you don't know what's going to happen. And that's not the only good game that's going to be going on. There's a bunch of other ones that could be good. Browns versus Commanders, Packers, Rams, Cowboys, Steelers, Saints, Chiefs. Well, honestly, I don't know, because, as a Saints fan, it's been really tough these past couple of weeks. The first 2 weeks, it was all, oh, when the Saints go marching in. Then, it's kind of been depressing, I don't know. I was feeling the hype. Derek Carr, now it's just gone to dust. But who knows? Maybe we can get Devontae Adams. Carr can be happy again. Yeah. So, what game are you guys looking forward to this week?
Definitely, obviously, Texans-Bills. Both teams are 3-1. I want to see an exciting game on Sunday. Hopefully, the Texans come out on top, but we'll see what happens.
Well, a game I was excited for, we just had Thursday Night Football, Falcons and Buccaneers. That was a good game. Kirk Cousins balled out, 509 passing yards.
Kirk Gold Chains.
Yeah, Kirk Cousins balled out. He had a great game. Darnell Mooney, Drake London. Defense played good. I do think the Buccaneers gave that game away, though. As great as Kirk Cousins was, he threw the game away at the end, and they were still able to force overtime with the field goal and come away with the overtime victory. But the Bucs were having a good year. I guess the Falcons are leading the division now. NFC South is always just like I don't know. The NFC South and NFC East. It's just
we're respectable now.
You never know what's going to happen.
That's yeah, you never really know what's going to happen. But yeah, the Saints are also in the division, so it's kind of a toss-up. Any one of those teams can make it, and then we have the Panthers, of course. But
poor Carolina.
Yeah, it'd be interesting. The Falcons left a lot of points on the board. Darnell Mooney missed a 3rd and 6 catch in the red zone that ended up resulting in 3. Young Ho-Koo missed a couple kicks. But like you said, the Falcons really did try to give that game away. The Buccaneers fumbled, and then on the next possession, Kirk threw into double coverage for an interception, and you would have thought that the game was over. But, a good stop by the Falcons defense resulted in a field goal. And then, I don't know how you feel about the overtime rules, but, the Falcons getting the ball first, went right down the field, scored a 45-yard touchdown from Hodge to win the game.
I mean, yeah, overtime rules, I don't know if they're going to change it. I know they changed it for the playoffs, but, I mean, it's get a stop.
Yeah. Got to win the coin toss, got to get a stop.
Yeah, just get a stop. Like, honestly, the overtime rules, yes, I know. It's frustrating, all right? You only get one shot at getting a stop, and if you don't, the game's over. But still, you just do your job, and then your offense has a chance to get it. It's that simple.
And honestly, I mean, get a stop, and then you just need a field goal to win. So.
Yep.
Yeah, it's honestly,
definitely a big win for Atlanta for sure.
Most definitely.
Yeah, most definitely. And also, speaking of big wins, how about the Commanders and Jaden Daniels, who's currently my pick for Rookie of the Year, because this guy, he's been balling.
Yeah, Jaden Daniels is balling out. With that Monday night game they had against the Bengals, I already knew Jaden Daniels was like that, just looking at LSU, won the Heisman. But yeah, offensive Rookie of the Year, I would say give it to him right now.
Yeah, I agree. I think we have to give credit to Cliff Kingsbury. He's been able to, create an offense that caters around his strengths. Terry McLaurin's gotten more involved. They've been able to split carries between Brian Robinson and Austin Eckler. So it'd be interesting kind of just, how they still configure the offense. They got a really good win against the Bengals on Monday night where Jaden Daniels was pretty much flawless. And so them playing the Browns this week, the Browns have a little bit of a tougher defense, but, they've also been struggling this year, and the Commanders are at home. So I expect, another win for Jaden Daniels under his resume for sure.
Yeah, and Terry McLaurin, he finally has good quarterback play. So I just want to give a round of applause to Terry. I feel happy for him because
you're not a fan of Taylor Heineke?
Sam Howell wasn't even that bad.
No, I'm sorry. No, I'm not a fan. And also, I want to give a special shout because apparently they've been using they've been using some VR training for Jaden Daniels. Basically, they, put in all their plays in the VR. Then Cliff Kingsbury, will spout it out to him. Like, that's like some very good technology-wise.
Hey, 2024, bro. We got
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, some very good technology. And finally, for our last topic, it's time for basketball. It's time for basketball. That's right, NBA season starts in a few weeks. Oh, and look at this.
Preseason is on right now as we speak.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, currently Nuggets are leading the Celtics 50-57. I didn't know about it in Abu Dhabi games. And a lot of big storylines, CP3 and Wemby in San Antonio, the next great pick and roll. I mean,
it's going to be crazy. I mean, Chris Paul, obviously, legendary point guard, and Wemby's a generational talent that we haven't seen in probably since LeBron, honestly, about 20 years.
Yeah.
So it'll be interesting to see how San Antonio does. Greg Pop is still there, legendary coach. He still has his wits about him, and, he's still able to coach at the highest level. I think there's definitely a couple interesting storylines for sure. Will the Warriors have a down year from what they had last year, considering they don't have Clay?
Yeah, they don't.
How will the Rockets do this year with an improving rookie core? The Cat trade that just happened a few days ago. I think that for the Knicks, I think it was actually a good trade for them because I think that Randall isn't necessarily a ball hog, but more or less he kind of took a lot of the volume of shots away from other players that probably could use them, like Jalen Brunson, or maybe getting Josh Hart more involved in the offense, or even Miles Bridges now, who they have, or not Miles Bridges, Mikal Bridges, who they just acquired from Brooklyn. I think it'll be interesting kind of how they cater that offense. They did lose a little bit of toughness with Randall, but I think that the offense got even better. You have Cat, you have Josh Hart, you've got Mikal Bridges, you've got Jalen Brunson, all of these guys that can make big shots. So it'll be interesting to see what the Knicks do for sure.
Yeah, they lost a lot of toughness on defense. I mean, he's not necessarily a bad defender, but he's not like a hard-nosed defender, so they'll definitely lose that grit on that end. But the good news is they at least got some depth, so that could be good news.
So I wouldn't say Cat is the best defender on ball, but we've seen the amazing job he did against Jokic in the playoffs, guarding Jokic, even better than Defensive Player of the Year, Rudy Gobert. Mm-hmm. And they also have Tom Thibodeau at head coach, so I think he'll devise up a scheme and where they're going to be playing some good team defense.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think it's interesting, kind of how this trade all came about. It was a shock to me personally. On the Timberwolves side of things, it'll be interesting now kind of what has to happen with Ant. Usually it was Ant and Cat running the 1 and 2 combo there, but they were able to get Dante DiVincenzo off the bench in a trade with Julius Randle. So I think he'll provide some much needed veteran depth on the bench. I also think he's somebody pretty good to like pair next to Rob Dillingham, who they have. And then Julius kind of replacing Cat at the 4. I think it'll be interesting for sure. The Timberwolves are like already a gritty team. So I think he just adds to that, the team toughness. And I think offensively, I think the Wolves will be fine. I think Julius and Cat can kind of replace each other's stats, whether they take 10 to 20 shots a game. I think they can both average 20 at least, for sure. So I would say it's mostly an even trade for both sides, but I definitely think if I had to pick a winner, I'd probably pick the Knicks.
I would just say people ask, why would they trade Cat? Just the philosophy behind the move. They have 3, I would say good centers. Rudy Gobert, you probably don't want to move Gobert because you gave up so much to get him already. Mm-hmm. You got Naz Reid, he has a payday coming up, and you already have Cat, he has like a crazy contract. So it's just, do you want to pay 3 centers? So I think that's what went into moving Cat, and you get back Randall, who's he's serviceable, and then with the Knicks, from the Knicks side, I mean we've seen Randall's playoff series with the Knicks. It wasn't really all that great. So I would agree though it was a good move for both sides.
Yeah, I think both. Cat struggled from three in the playoffs, especially against Dallas, and like you said, Julius Randle struggled as well. But I think also the Knicks were able to take on that contract because Jalen Brunson took his pay cut. And then, you also have to pay Anthony Edwards at some point, which he'll probably get a rookie.
Well, he's already signed the rookie max.
Oh, he did?
Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah, he's already paid, and Randall has a decently big contract, and obviously Rudy has his big contract. So it'll be interesting to see how both sides of the trade play out, whether there's an increase in wins for one team, a decrease in wins for the other, if they stay the same.
Yeah, very interesting on how this move can impact both teams. And also another storyline, the Lakers, father and son, join forces together. And, oh boy, Bronny James. Bronny. The talk of the town of LA. I posted this on Facebook about, making the pick, and one of my closest friends, shout out to John Creder, talked about LeBron and Bronny 2025 NBA champs. I was like, you are very delusional. And now look, I honestly don't think they'll be champs in the first year. But with all the moves the Lakers have been doing, getting Bronny James, they signed JJ Redick as the head coach, all these other things. What are your expectations for the Lake Show this season?
Probably about the same expectations I've had last year, which is not that many. Moves, they signed 0 players in free agency. Their biggest move was their second round selection of Bronny James. I think Bronny's going to spend a lot of time with the South Bay Lakers this year. Lakers overall roster construction, it's still the same thing as last year. You have concerns with AD with his health, and he has been healthy, but he hasn't been consistent. You have LeBron, aging LeBron, and he still is LeBron James. He'll still give you 30 and 10, but overall, like I said, not that much. And then you have JJ Redick, never coached a game of basketball a day in his life, so I'm not really. I don't know. I guess play-in, and then they're in the West, so yeah.
Yeah, I think he makes some good points. I would kind of push back a little bit on that notion, only because JJ Redick has his own podcast, and from watching a little bit of it, he tells it like he sees it. He's not afraid to speak his mind.
I do think JJ Redick knows ball. I'm not going to slide him on that. It's just, but running the podcast and being on ESPN, I would say it's different than actually being on the sideline.
Absolutely.
Coaching a 48-minute basketball game.
Absolutely, for sure. I do think though that we've seen this kind of rise in player coaches for the league, and so I think that he can use some of his ball knowledge over his long NBA career to kind of help the Lakers. I think as long as you have LeBron, you're obviously contending for the playoffs, and I think honestly, we've seen past players that have played with LeBron speak about kind of what it is like playing with LeBron or playing for LeBron. So I think whether Bronny spends time in the G League or whether he gets in minutes on the active roster, I think it's a good environment for him, because who better to learn from than arguably one of the GOATs of the game, to start off your career. They also got Dalton Knecht, first round from Tennessee, so I think he'll be a nice floor spacer at the 3 or 4 wherever he gets played. And they didn't really, besides losing Lonnie Walker, they didn't lose D'Lo, who I think is poised for a better year. They just signed Austin Reeves to an extension, so I think he'll have a better year, kind of developing and growing. As long as AD stays healthy, they'll be fine. They still have Rui, they still have Jared, so I think they've kept most of that core together, and they've added a good rookie in Dalton, and then obviously LeBron's son. So I think it'll be interesting to see kind of how they mold together. Plus they also have Darvin Ham, I feel like was a lot of the fault last year. Some of his coaching techniques and some of his coaching styles. So I think getting a fresh face in there will kind of help the Lakers, maybe give them some new energy and some new life that they needed last season that they'll have this season.
And finally, one more question. So NBA season's hyping up. We got you got your pretenders, contenders, playoff teams, fringe playoff teams. The suckers of suckitude. Speaking, it's gonna be shaping up to be a great season. So which playoff team do you think will not make the playoffs, and which team that did not make the playoffs will make the playoffs?
Gosh, that's a hard question. I guess on the East side, let me think. I would say a team that's going to have a down year. A team that's not going to make the playoffs. I think all of the East stays the same. I think, you still got good teams like Boston and Indiana and the New York Knicks. A team on the West that I honestly think will make the playoffs, they didn't last year, is the Houston Rockets, actually. I think our young Rocket core of Amen, of Cam Whitmore, Alperen, Jalen, etc. I think we're poised for a better year. We finished around even last year at around 500. And I think with more experience under Ime Udoka, and I think with more chemistry being built between the young rookies, I think we can get a couple more wins under our belt.
I would say a team that would, out of the West, that would make the playoffs is the Memphis Grizzlies. They didn't have John Morant last year. They had a whole bunch of injuries last year. And I think just overall, and then they got Zach Edey. I think no one's really talking about the Grizzlies. I think a team that will surprise a lot of people is the LA Clippers. People think that they lost Paul George. That's like the big thing. But say they kept Paul George, it's just going to be, why would you re-sign Paul George? Y'all had him for 5 years and I didn't do nothing. Paul George leaves the Clippers. Oh man, y'all should have kept Paul George. Like, come on now.
Yeah, there was a report that came out from Harden saying that he's, this is the best he's felt in the last 5 or 6 years. So I think, I wouldn't be surprised to see another Harden breakout year for sure. They have Harden. Obviously, he's not the same James Harden, but he's still, serviceable. I think he's still like an 18 and 10 type of player. Absolutely.
You have Kawhi Leonard. He has his health concerns, but I would say a realistic 65 games out of Kawhi Leonard. We've seen it last year. They Zubac extension, Terrence Mann extension. You got some young players that they just signed. Kevin Porter Jr., Mo Bamba. We'll see what he can do. Kai Jones. So I think the Clippers are going to be better than a lot of people are giving.
Yeah, for sure. I agree. Speaking
on the Rockets, I like the Rockets core. But I see them being like on the playing edge again. They got Van Vliet, Amen, Jabari, a nice group of young guys. I like Reed Shepherd. But we'll really have to wait to see when the season starts. I think Jalen Green needs to be like more consistent. He had a nice little stretch last year, but I would like to see him become more consistent and playing winning basketball.
Yeah, I agree with that entirely. Yeah, definitely Memphis is definitely a good team to look out for sure. John Morant coming back. They really had to rely on, next man up mentality with so many injuries last season. So I think they're poised for a really good year this year.
Yeah, and that's about wrapping up the show. So we hope you enjoy, but we just got one special bonus question left. So as you all know, D Rose retirement after 16 seasons, youngest MVP, dealt with a lot of knee injuries, but he kept on preserving. And so back on Facebook, I kept seeing a lot of posts like about his Hall of Fame credentials. I looked at it, I looked at his stats and accolades, and honestly, I just don't see him making Hall of Fame if we're putting him up to that standard. So what do you guys' takes? 30 seconds, go.
Well, honestly, really, what even is the standard of Hall of Fame? I feel like Derrick Rose, off of his name, could probably get in if you look over the accolades and stats. It's debatable, but one thing I will say about this, Tom Thibodeau will pay for his war crimes.
Yeah, honestly, I think, I agree with you in the sense that Derrick Rose, off of name impact and just the impact that he's brought on the game, how many people he's inspired, regardless of accolades, obviously his career was cut short by injuries. I think that just based off his name alone, that and the impact that he's brought to the game of basketball and for the point guard position, I think he'll get in for sure.
And well, this has been the end of our show, folks. We thank you for joining us in the morning if you had time. I'm Sean Paul, your host with the most, with the swagger of Mick Jagger.
I'm Kenneth Bowman.
And I'm Andrew Wach.
And once again, thank you for joining us, and we will see you next time.
Go Cougs!